it's unnecessary.
Oh, this one has a, okay. Yeah, you should be able to share now.
Okay. So I suggest to structure this first through discussing the context, and the largest piece of context is, I think, OpenAI's super alignment plan. And then I suggested a lot of ideas, various angles through which we can do research, and I suggest everyone to add whatever we can go through those items, and I encourage everyone just to add their thoughts by adding, subordinate items, and collaborate on this brainstorm session. So OpenAI's super alignment plan, as I understand it, is to build an AGI which will serve as a scientist, and I understand that it will be basically an LLM-based agent, which Seth heard and discussed yesterday. And they announced that they will do it in 4 years, or plan to do this in 4 years. So I guess they believe that the next generation of LLMs, which will perhaps roughly will be 1 order of magnitude larger than the GPT-4 iteration in terms of physical compute, or parameter count, something like this, or the iteration after that, roughly GPT-6, it will already be sufficiently smart to be basically AGI. So this is a bit, and they will just ask it prompt, or if it will be a language model based agent, set it a goal to do science, basically, not just do whatever, not roam in the economy, build business, make $1 billion, whatever, but just do science. And this kind of science in particular, it probably doesn't require a lot of experimentation. It's not particularly maybe social science or biology, pharmacology, something like this, but more abstract science, which seems to be solvable, or on the tip of the pen, cognitive science or political science, imagining the right structure of alignment, whatever, completely solving it. So this is how I understand their plan. And so the questions which I suggest to discussing with regard to this plan is, first, do you think this plan is philosophically meaningful at all? Could it be solved, even in principle? I guess this relates to the earlier session, if alignment is solvable, but I skipped that session. So if somebody was there, maybe you can add the context to this.
Sorry, missed that session as well.
So my personal opinion about this is, I'm sort of skeptical. I feel that philosophically they even approach this problem. So I mean, it is it is solvable, but it is solvable in a sort of totalitarian way, because I sort of don't believe that you can sort of solve alignment for everyone without imposing certain meta ethics and maybe even a certain ethical framework, like what do we actually mean by alignment, right? Like this is exactly what we mean, like this is exactly how we operationalize values, etc. And if you at the same time try to be plural about this, like, okay, we respect people who have religious beliefs, we respect people who have just scientists who have different views on alignment, on cognitive science, etc. Like you cannot have both, right? Like you either just converge on some single framework or not. So I'm afraid this is sort of totalitarian project, but on the other hand, maybe this is the best chance anyway. So probably not. So this is this philosophical question, not particularly like practical question, I guess. So the second question is what is the probability that they will actually fail to do this AGI scientists, like whether because LLM progress will like stop, or because sort of creating science algorithm even on top of capable LLM is harder than it seems. Does anyone have any takes on this? Like, is this easy problem? Like, basically, this is a reformulation of the question, like, do we expect AGI really soon, basically through language model agents or not? Because to me, AGI and being able to do science are, I guess, synonyms. I don't see how they be apart.
I also share the same view, Roman. Because, yeah, I think there is a possibility that these LLMs, they may show the limitation at some point that because they are not they lack grounding, and that they can be trained to be able to have a sequential reasoning, but maybe that they will have at the same time a big black angles that will make them incapable of doing science.
You think particularly because of the lack of grounding, they will not be able to do science, sort of?
Yes, yeah, this I don't think that if we had other modalities, then we will have the we will solve the problem. Like even if we give LLM access to videos, I don't think that this is enough to have them to fix them this black spots.
Well, to me, so this is at least Jan LeCun's view that, okay, just LLMs which are trained just on text, they are not grounded, and this is really, really important both for, general thinking capability, spatial capability, that famous Twitter, like how it could understood like which gears like turn in what direction. And if you ask LM, like prompt LM, but be sure that Jan LeCun thinks this is the task that AI cannot do, and then it solves it like GPT-4. So I'm skeptical about this, but especially if we add the other modalities to LM training, it sounds almost to form into the statement that just DNN training paradigm, it doesn't scale to AGI. So like just because what is left from it if we have all modalities on the video frames, on text, yeah. But this is also like evaluative question. It's not like the core of what I want to discuss, so maybe we can leave it as that. So the third question with regard to the super alignment plan is that, okay, if if they actually build AGI scientists as a plan and it is able to do science, but it is misaligned deceptively or derail it in some direction, or like breaks out of control, stops doing the sign task and breaks free and just starts to do its own task. So if you perceive it as a risk, and well, obviously if OpenAI set up super alignment teams, they at least plan to do some alignment work in this direction, right? They don't think, oh, we just have our GPT-5, we RLHF it as we do just right now, just typical RLHF or whatever. Then we do quite simple, maybe language model agent on top of it, but without any concerns for alignment, just trying to make it capable in doing science. So basically do not much more alignment that is already done, and then expect to task it with the task to do science, like alignment science, cognitive science, etc. And then we expect it to just either solve it or not, but not to fail miserably, right? Not to fail into a catastrophe. So apparently they don't think it is as simple, because they actually do have the super alignment team, otherwise they would not even need that. But then if they think it is more dangerous than that, we probably also think this is more dangerous than that, even trying to start this AGI scientists to actually do something. And then the question is how we perceive big this risk, and whether independent alignment scientists perhaps could do something maybe to help them with this risk, externally, or prove this is unacceptable risk or something like that. And somebody have added a comment, AGI could come soon and occur via large scaling, but also not be LM specifically. I don't see how this applies to this particular question, to be honest.
I'm just going to throw in some thoughts on the question itself. I feel like OpenAI's plan sort of heavily conditions on there being like a pretty big range of capabilities where it's simultaneously capable enough to make a lot of progress towards alignment, but also not capable enough that it could like hack into servers, hack into people's bank accounts, start sending out phishing emails and that kind of stuff. And to me, that seems kind of misguided, because like humans are able to hack into servers, humans are able to like send out phishing emails or send out death threats or whatever, whereas humans are not able to solve alignment, at least not yet. So like it's heavily conditioning on us being in the world where you can build something that's capable enough to solve alignment, but it's not capable enough to like cause significant damage to the world, especially if you connect it to the internet, which I'm guessing they're going to connect it to the internet because it's them. Like, to me, this seems very, very dangerous, because you're pretty much directly aiming for the kind of AI system that I assume is the most dangerous, i.e. an AI system that is capable of doing very complex reasoning of this exact type. Also, I think there's one extra caveat to this, which is, let's assume that OpenAI builds an AGI scientist and they get it to like perfectly do alignment, which first of all, if you wanted to like perfectly do alignment, you first need to align the AGI scientist, therefore chicken and egg. But even if we ignore that problem, let's say that OpenAI does like a perfect job and the HS scientist is like happily chugging along trying to solve alignment for like a year and a half. But then if assuming that people like have heard of the fact that they've succeeded at this, somebody somewhere, possibly Meta, possibly somebody else is going to get the idea. What if we do the same thing, but like try to get it to do capabilities research instead and try to get it to do rigorous self-improvement? And I don't think that Meta at that point is going to be like that far behind OpenAI. I think maybe OpenAI could have like a year and a half, 2 years, but then Meta is going to catch up, and then we just go boom very, very quickly. And like the knowledge that this is possible, if that was like something that people knew for a fact this is possible, if we just like throw a bit more money at this, some company somewhere is going to do it, and that seems extremely bad.
To your first point, I also assume I didn't add to this document that the super alignment plan and doing this AI scientist probably assumes that they will not give access to that level of LLM which underlies the scientist at all. They will just try to run it internally just on this task. They will not give it access to anyone for hacking into systems, for building businesses, whatever. And the second point, to be honest, I didn't understood. Is this about like, so just a little below, I also pose question like how much open source will like behind, and whether we can convince Meta Likun to change the strategy of releasing llamas. So is this what you're talking about?
It's like quite related. I think the thing I'm more worried about is this. Let's say that you have OpenAI that builds an AI scientist and they get it to do alignment. But then even though they don't give anybody else access to it, people just sort of hear through the grapevine that, oh, the OpenAI has built an AI scientist and they're having it do some kind of AI research. As soon as it's known that this is something that's possible, if you just throw a bit more money at the problem, people at other labs like Meta or other places are going to start throwing more money at building AI scientists to do capabilities research. Like as soon as you know that you can build an AI scientist to do complex research, somebody somewhere is going to use it to do capabilities research, because at that point it's just like a matter of money and a bit of time.
I'd like to say I agree with that heavily, and also this doesn't even require the knowledge of how they did this to leak. The knowledge that they can do it to leak, if that knowledge is credible, is can be enough on its own to get people to go, oh, it's possible. So it's like you said, it means they must just throw more money at it, or they must have come up with something that people could come up with. So people will start going, okay, we'll throw a lot of ideas and money at this, and then they'll also succeed sometimes.
I agree with this concern, but so this seems to me to fall into the category of general strategic concerns, as well as concerns like, can OpenAI or any other lab whatsoever, right, to achieve the necessary 99.999 level of operational excellence, like organizational security, that the weights of their models don't leak, like that they don't screw up, just their alignment, science or engineering, just through, incompetency or overlook, blunder, whatever. So this seems to me like more like general organizational and, security concerns, which I definitely agree, valid points, like valid arguments for probably like complete moratoriums, which, by the way, like on the high level, I subscribe to. Like I would like AI development be halted completely. So I endorse pause AI, like stop AI, all those. But this is not exactly what I want to focus this discussion on, because it was, I think, discussed in other sessions already. So the final question, at least, which I posed with regard to OpenAI's super alignment plan is, So if AGI scientists that they develop, they task it with solving cognitive science, solving alignment, etc., developing the science of it. And it founds like clearly that, you know, alignment is a mirage. Like you cannot solve it meaningfully whatsoever. Like you cannot just do anything with it, or it is completely intractable for some reasons, or you need to do some you know, interventions that will be intractable on political level, you know, maybe connect brains of all people together or something like this, whatever. So if this, like, okay, AGI scientist exists, it works, but it produces negative result, then the question is, do we expect at that point, you know, yes, as you just said, because of this massive, you know, excitement, and some actors will like to make AGI reality still, like through like people like effective accelerationists or whoever, like, will it be possible in any way, just at that point, if the like AGI scientist shows that this is like unsolvable problem, or problem which you cannot reduce risk of sufficiently, like below maybe, you know, 90%, which will still be maybe unacceptable. So then like, will this AGI train be basically stoppable at that point? And if not, like, what again, like from the research point of view, what can we do about it, if anything? Yeah, perhaps nothing, I guess.
I guess two thoughts there. One is, I think the idea of clear negative results that showing that alignment cannot be solved. I'm not sure what that could even look like. And I would argue that quite possibly that's just like not a thing that could even happen like in any universe, regardless of whether or not this kind of stuff exists. I mean, how could you like, what would a mathematical proof that you can't meaningfully solve alignment mean when we don't even fully know what solving alignment really means? I don't think that we could find something that would like actually convince everybody, basically. That being said, if we did find something very convincing, I have heard from people who like work in Westminster and stuff that there seems to be quite a lot of political will, at least here in the UK, to regulate this stuff and potentially shut it down. And there seems to be like quite a lot of politicians quite outraged at what OpenAI is doing. So if you want something actually really convincing, I think it would work very well. But I kind of worry that convincing results showing that it can't be solved just like that's not even a well-defined concept. I don't think that really exists.
Yeah, it sounds like it very well might be, you know, undecidable problem. You cannot prove that it is solvable. You cannot prove that it's unsolvable. Like, yeah, sounds reasonable. So this was still like a context, because the actual thing is what I want to discuss. Yeah, and we can go through a little bit more context points. So we don't need to, you know, just focus on those points. So then there is conjecture, and it announced cognitive emulation strategy, which they almost didn't release any details at all, but it sounds that they want to automate science, in particular epistemology, which they think is science, or like, yeah, know how to do epistemology rigorously, sort of from first principles. And it seems that they think that solving science, so to speak, is not equal to building AGI. It seems that they think there could be something like a more dumb science machine, which is not fully fledged AGI, which I don't feel this way, but probably this is not that important. On the high level, the strategy actually seems not very different from OpenAI's strategy, I would say. And then there is Anthropic and DeepMind, of course, and you may add Inflection AI at this point, who have also massive investment. And yeah, they just plan to scale LLMs at least 1 or maybe 2 orders of magnitude just in the next 2 years, and actually check like whether this leads to AGI or not. They all seem convinced to trying to do this. And so the major like my major inference from that is that at this point, it doesn't seem tractable to me to try to dissuade all those large labs with those, billion-dollar scale investments from trying to make AGI this way. So it seems that they will try to do it unless, okay, it seems completely intractable to try to convince them directly that this is not what they should be doing. Through political route, yeah, I don't know, maybe still. So other context points which are relevant, I think, for alignment research strategy is, yes, we already started to discuss earlier, like how much do we expect open source lag behind, like whether something like Llama 2 will be sort of the top which will be available. Maybe Meta will decide to change strategy because, like, even if they can create, Llama which is as capable as GPT-4, they will be convinced, by the peers at the AGI labs that this is too dangerous to release this on the weight level because it can be, un-RLHF'd, and used to make really, powerful spam tools or really powerful, viruses or whatever harmful can be done with such powerful or already like GPT-4 level stuff. Or no, we expect open source to march forward to keep up with proprietary state of the art, and we should account for this soon proliferation of really powerful things in our potential research strategy.
How much do you think that open source will follow the same path as major labs? Because I think that my surface level impression is that a lot of the open source work is focused on, for example, making models work on smaller devices, whereas the major labs don't worry about that as much.
There is Meta AI, there is Stability AI, Illutor AI, which seems to be committed actually to keeping up with state-of-the-art LLM capabilities specifically. At least is it what I understand, what I see. Maybe I'm not completely right. I mean, at least there is some well, open source. Where is the boundaries of it? Where is the boundaries of AI development and open source in general? State of the art, not state of the art, but at least there is some open source push towards that. They're not all just doing something on small scale, and they actually also want to beat open source AGI. Basically, there are people who want to do this. So another open question is how likely is it major labs with APIs like Claude by Anthropic and GPT-4, maybe the next iteration of models, how likely is it they will ban agent development on top of the APIs? Because so far it seems okay. AutoGPT, baby AGI is not harmful, but if the next generation of models like LLMs could be used to develop really capable agents, then like major labs, major companies won't ban access to them, then probably this means that we should invest more in agent safety research, like how do we, or maybe detection, like if major labs are not really convinced that they should ban this use, but well, maybe they won't, but they don't know how. Maybe we should proactively start to investigate how to reliably detect that API is used for, you know, the as a part of cognitive architecture with this language model based agent. Because if there is some actor which is really committed to doing that, they may try some obfuscation strategies, such as, you know, calling OpenAI API and interleave it with like Anthropic API, so that, you know, the OpenAI doesn't receive the full log of API calls, like how the cognitive architecture really proceeds, and maybe from those, you know, bits and pieces, they cannot understand that this is a part of the cognitive architecture. But maybe we should think how this could be detected reliably. The next question, yes, we already I already touched on it. It is a question of, yeah, basically whether we expect this language model agent paradigm to scale to AGI soon, or it won't be as easy. Maybe, yeah, it will saturate on some capability level, and it will be hard to push through that level. And we should expect, you know, something like economically productive agents, perhaps built on top of LLMs, and maybe a modularization of, you know, LLMs in the economy start happening, which I linked above. But this will happen on the scale of, you know, perhaps decades rather than years. This is not clear to me, but I personally think maybe 60%. My personal expectation is that maybe 60-70% is that LLM agents will be viable AGI paradigm, and then you can make a scientist on top of it. Yeah, like that. Basically, super alignment strategy of OpenAI, it is like doable to the step in the plan where they actually start this AGI scientist, and then I don't know what happens. And yeah, maybe 30% or 35%, I expect that maybe this is not going to happen as soon. And somebody else added point, how do independent researchers convince researchers at big labs with some element awareness, for example, OpenAI, of the utility and or validity of the solutions, especially convincing engineers, prosaic element researchers of theoretical conceptual results they developed.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. I feel like there's a kind of difficult divide between the fact that deploying one of these large language models like OpenAI has to do, or doesn't have to do, sorry, OpenAI has done. They have to deal with a whole load of problems that come with that to make sure that they don't get loads of bad press because the model does something bad, and that it actually works for its consumers. And this involves building a big sort of portfolio of different safety techniques that they have to engineer at scale. And then there's a big sort of gulf between that kind of work that they're doing and doing conceptual work, perhaps independently. And I feel like I'm not really sure the right answer is here, but if I were to go away and do some experiments on some small models, for instance, that showed X, Y, Z, the best I could do would be to write up a post or even write a paper on it. But at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult to kind of, because I wouldn't be proving something out on a really large scale with a sort of top of the range model that has to be robust to all kinds of things. It's just not, there's a kind of credibility gap almost. I get the feeling that when people from Anthropic give interviews about why they're really keen on building top of the range models, that's almost what they're angling at. And I don't really know what the answer is to that. I don't know if that's interesting.
Yes, exactly. A few lines below in the section research strategy audience theory for bug change. There is a point research to convince major agile labs to change their strategies plans. And I'm highly doubtful that, like writing posts on less wrong or even demonstrating some, some results on smaller models, or even as there was a very recent paper demonstrating that all current LLMs are prone to certain jailbreaks that, well, it casts doubt on whether, like, jailbreaks could be really reliably, ironed out or not. All those kind of things, I cannot rule completely, of course, like you can not rule out anything completely, but I'm really doubtful that this could change significantly the strategies of major labs because of the, sunk cost fallacy and, the economic incentives of this process, because they already have billions invested and already already bought all those like H100s, B100s, whatever. And yes, and also, as you mentioned, this authority gap, or what I called here the tendency of large room of smart people, which are agile labs, like the very large rooms of a lot of smart people, to become, very convinced. Not in bad sense. Maybe it's, well, to some degree this is groupthink, but this is, groupthink which has really good models behind it. So it's almost impossible to erode those models to some levels that they change the strategy completely. So yeah, that's why I'm like really personally, like, I maybe in my personal research strategy, I thought, okay, maybe I write, post on less wrong with hope that major labs will notice, maybe change something. But now, if I do anything, I definitely don't count on that. Like whatever other thing, but not that. I think jobs. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I wonder if there's a kind of a sense that what the major labs want is, if you could almost think about it as they want people that would create tools, like solution-oriented people that will build tools that they can use. Almost, it comes back to this idea, like, does alignment research even stack? Is it greater than the sum of its parts? And then you're all playing on the same team. Whereas there might, in absence of that, there might be this sense that almost the people writing criticism on less wrong are, adversaries without skin in the game, who are, kind of just making life difficult rather than being, like, from their perspective, that might be how they see it. Which then begs the question of, how do you organize efficiently to build sort of these stackable tools that can that everyone can then use collectively. Yeah.
Do you understand that you suggested perhaps like more typical type of posts on less wrong, like, oh, you can never align LLMs convincingly, or can never eradicate jailbreaks, might be even to some degree counterproductive because they might alienate major labs? or is it not what you say?
I mean, I'm saying that it might be possible, but I think like it's difficult to, I don't think you can concretely say either way. I think what I'm trying to say is that you'll probably get a much more traction from them if they feel like you're helping them solve their problems. And if there was this sense in alignment research, like everybody was building towards a shared endeavor, whereas I often get the feeling that there isn't a lot of that. There's a lot of people going on places like Less Wrong and writing like criticisms of each other's strategies and saying, oh, this is never going to work, or that's never going to work, etc. It can be quite sort of negative. I mean, perhaps there are good reasons for that, but at the same time, if you want someone to pay attention to what you're saying, and given all of the things that you mentioned, all of the sunk costs and all of the economic incentives and stuff, like helping them achieve their goals in a way that achieves everybody's goals is almost I think the way to think about it. Like, how do you get it so that everybody's incentives are actually in the same direction?
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree with this, and I mean, frankly, I guess many people, like myself included, would be happy if they say, okay, like maybe we can collaborate something, more closely, collaborate on this super alignment. But well, even imagine like no pay, just I just support myself, whatever. But this is organizationally hard, of course, like from the information security point of view. So yes, this is quite hard. So this is what I like. There is the next point, like we can aim research at helping labs in the strategies. And well, there is certainly one, currently I think well, maybe 1.5 ways in helping labs. One really like positive example is evals. You can have LLM released by major lab, and anybody can develop evals, benchmarks like Machiavelli benchmark, and this is probably helpful. So in this way, you can sort of work within the LLM paradigm. Well, you don't try to argue that LLM is doomed, the strategy is unreliable whatsoever. You try to help to evaluate them in some level, develop insightful benchmarks or evals. And second kind of this thing perhaps is interpretability, because yes, like interpretability techniques, maybe they some of them, maybe many of them, are really transferable between similarly-ish LLM architectures. And so if somebody develops some interpretability insight, on the smaller scale model like GPT-2 or something, and they publish it, and then maybe major labs could adopt it quite easily, just apply the insight from the paper. Maybe it's the hard part, maybe to find this insight, to validate it rather than just implementing it. Maybe it's quite easy. So in this way, people also can help major labs in the agendas generally without the need to collaborating with them actually closely, without the need to know the deep internals of the architectures like GPT-4 architecture, whatever. Yeah. Jobs.
Yeah, I think those are two very good examples of ways that you can like work you can do, which is very much stacks and is greater than the sum of its parts. There's evals and interpretability. Almost like it would be good if there was more of that kind of thing, and a focus on sort of, I'm not really sure what it would look like, but some kind of framework existed whereby it was generally understood that all of these open problems were all kind of linked, and any work on any one of them helped with everything else.
Well, probably such completely all-encompassing framework couldn't exist, because somebody could always say, well, even applying certain, cognitive science theories to, for example, LLMs is practically intractable. Like, basically, I suspect it's intractable to extract word models, for example, from LLMs. Maybe in some really far future, but doesn't seem like it's going to be tractable soon. Because to have like clear picture of what the word model is from the predictive processing point of view, I guess the model itself should be basically developed as a factor model and like as active inference agent or predictive processing agent, not like as LM trained on predicting the next token. Although have this emergent word model, but it's so messy and so like deeply ingrained in the ways that it's maybe taken out of there, it's impossible. Jobs, could you maybe comment on your like spell out what you said in chat, because I'm not good at following it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point that because you talked about this less wrong type of thing, I believe that it is very important to just speak to them, and by speak I really mean speak in person. Try to have in-depth conversations with individuals from these labs, just to make a connection, to make them connect a face to a text, to an idea, to get some ideas across, even if they don't immediately agree, but it might still sink in eventually. And I believe that is a very important channel, and also it gives you a chance of I don't know, get to know opportunities for collaboration that you wouldn't see in published texts or Polish stuff. So I know it's sometimes very exhausting and also frustrating, but if you just don't get any answer if you contact someone cold. But I think it's necessary, and I try this very much. And in some cases, I think I was quite successful. And just, for example, I had a one-on-one for over 1 hour with Ethan Paris, who is leading the Claude development group. And I was really astonished how kind of easy it was to actually get into contact with these people. And I think he listened to me, and we discussed a number of ideas. I'm not saying he tomorrow does something different because of that, but I think this type of contact is very, very important. Also, not these people, because even though they have business interests, I think most of them are basically decent people.
Yeah, definitely. I don't tend to view OpenAI or DeepMind or Anthropic as evil in any sense whatsoever. What is your strategy for like how to approach them? Do you find their handles on Twitter and write direct messages on Twitter, or less wrong, or something else?
Well, I'm kind of an old school guy, so I just email people, and sometimes they answer and sometimes they don't answer, and then I email someone more lowly from their group until I get someone who answers me. And I found it always a good idea to keep the email as short as possible and have something very concrete in there, like asking a question or asking for advice on something, being very modest, but still also making clear that there is some kind of original thought in your head that might be interesting for them to extract. So I think it's an art form, and I'm not claiming it's easy to do, but I think it's, just wanted to make the point that beyond these published stuff, it's a very important channel to have kind of actual social contact to people.
A few months ago, maybe I wanted to write something to Stuart Armstrong, who doesn't work at Major Lab, but he has his own small app in the UK. And I couldn't find any way to connect him whatsoever. Like I tried to find all his old papers, and none of them featured his email, no Twitter, nothing. Well, maybe, okay, maybe I could have write him direct message on less wrong.
Yeah, or have a common acquaintance make the contact for you. So, it's difficult, obviously. But...
So somebody added to this, yes, like if you move to this section, research strategy, audience, theory of impact and change, like as apart from default, which is just publish and forget about what you did. Research could be directed at policymakers, at convincing labs to change something about the strategies, their plans, which we discussed, to help strategies, to help major labs in the strategies, which we also discussed. So somebody also added research to enable open source initiatives to do a better job on alignment than major labs. Could somebody comment on this? Who added at this point?
That was me again. Yeah. Yeah, I just think that, I mean, open source will get more and more important, and they're less kind of mainstream. They don't have a kind of a clear hierarchy. There's no boss telling the people are working on an on an open source project, like for example, Open Assistant, what they should do, because they're just contributing stuff, and they're happy about any contribution typically, and then they tend to accept it. And there's no, in my impression at least, I mean, there are of course also very streamlined open source projects, but the ones that I know are very, very diverse and very open, and they could go that direction, and they might be able to raise a lot of resources, like also diverse resources. And so this one paper, we have no modes, like by Google, makes the point that they might actually be the ones who dominate in a few years, maybe, or even earlier. And at the same time, I think that those might be communities that are much more open to collaboration, and much more easy to also nudge in the right direction.
I didn't agree with there is no mod and nobody else has, because I think they underestimated how much depth bigger models like 100 billion plus parameters have versus smaller models. Smaller models,
scaling is just so big.
Surface behaviors. Sorry.
No, just agreeing that scaling is kind of a big deal with this. Like you get the most deep and interesting behavior of, for example, LLMs when they're the bigger ones.
I definitely feel LLMs didn't top out on depth. So I recently became lazy and I thought, okay, I have just a few bullet points, big bullet points, like maybe paragraphs, which aggregate in a full page of text. And I'm lazy to convert it into, like, well-structured post. And I asked Claude, like, just dumped all those points, like, write a good essay on this, and it didn't do anything. Like, I can do it, it cannot do it, but I feel that, next level of LLMs can really, process, these ideas and maybe collapse some which overlap, disaggregate arguments. I feel this is in the reach of even larger LLMs, which is not even is the reach of GPT-4 or Claude so far. And definitely will not be, and this is probably something that, well, obviously AGI needs to do, because like me as human, I need to do it, and like scientists for sure needs to do it, and just basically a writer needs to do it. But even the latest LLMs can't, and 10 billion parameter LLMs definitely will not be able to do it. They don't have, this depth of sifting through all those pieces of text and aggregating them into something. So the next.
Can I say something? On the research strategy for the audience. While I think that it is true that we have to be modest when we speak with the lab, for when we have in mind the research strategy that have to do alignment of the large language models. On the other side, I think we can be like bold. For example, when talking to policymakers, when we talk about research strategies that are independent of large language models, and so that we don't need, say, the lab. We need we need projects that are more from ground up, and then it's some ambition there will not be bad.
Yes, this is a good point. It didn't came to me originally in the point like research for policymakers, maybe governments, and I only thought in the defensive frame about it, like impose hard constraints, bans, moratoriums. But you added the point that okay, maybe it is a way to convince them that we really need, CERN or yes. Also, this interesting that some people tend to call it like a Manhattan Project for alignment, and some like CERN for alignment, which is the different frame, like the purpose of the technology. This is important point. Thanks. So the next section is like the next dimension or the next lens through which we can think about which like alignment research strategy is more impactful is what sub area do we focus on. So one option is pure LLMs and interpretability, adversarial robustness, this deep deception detection evals. So we just in the thread of this LLM paradigm, and it's very compatible with the point of helping AGI labs in their current plans, I guess. Then a language model based agent alignment strategies for it. I guess it is also mostly compatible with helping AGI labs, at least, yes, at least I guess OpenAI, particularly in its task to create alignment researcher, AGI alignment researcher. Because if it, I feel that if you try to focus on language model agent alignment or safety, like more in the abstract rather than targeting it as a collaboration with OpenAI, for example, there is absolutely okay. We can do it, but okay, we can publish this piece of paper. You see, this is how you can make safe agent, but somebody else could just create Charles GPT or whatever. If the basic LLMs are available, like you cannot impose this on everybody. And the problem is language model agents is that if the basic LLM is available, then you don't need massive resources or even massive hardware to run, to develop and to run and to test and to iterate on, etc. on language model agent architecture. So the next application is strategy, or sorry, like researching safety and alignment of DNNs or cognitive architectures more like in the abstract, like in black box manner, like black box interpretability, perhaps, maybe black box evals also we can see. Well, probably most evals are already like, they need to work with text as input and output, but yeah, basically it's same thing. Then there is brain-like AGI agenda, then agent foundations, cognitive science. Somebody added the point, affects safety aspects of different types of goals, maximizing